Welcome back to AJ on Perfect Solutions. In this week's lesson, we'll be turning your Angular project into a PWA or a progressive web app. We'll then take that app and using trusted web activities, we will be able to sync up an application that can be published to the Google Play Store, allowing it to hit your PWA and load the site directly on an Android device. I do want to point out that for the first half of this lesson, you won't need anything but Visual Studio Code or your favorite code editor. However, for the second half, you will need Android Studio or be able to create signed APKs on your own. The first thing that you'll have to do is be in an Angular app. If you are using your own, that's totally fine, and we'll start adding the PWA to that using ngadd schematic. If you don't already have an Angular app and you want to try this on your own, you can pull down lesson 15, and that's where we're going to start from. We're going to use the -- project command for ngadd, so you can take a look at angular.json and you'll see that the project has a name right here. Now we can type in the ngadd and then @angular/pwa and give that project name, so -- project and whatever your project name might be. I keep using this fancy word schematic. All you have to think about is that it's creating some files for us on its own, and then in the output you'll actually see these files, and we're going to walk through each of them one by one. So the first item up on our list is the ngsw config. This is for your service worker. The items in the prefetch are what it's going to install into the browser so that it can serve them up via the service worker. You'll see that favicon, index, CSS, and JS are all loaded, and as well as from your assets folder, there's a lazy install type mode for the prefetch. That's going to get everything out of assets that match this glob. The next file up is the manifest.json. It created the ngadd schematic created this file as well, and you'll see here it created it with just the basic Angular icon in multiple sizes. And this is important because when you load this to different devices, it will call out to this manifest and look for those sizes. I believe they're adding this to Microsoft Edge as well in the future, and they'll start respecting the manifest file. If we take a look at the angular.json, this was also updated via the ngadd command. And in here, it's going to start to describe what assets were added. You can see here it added the source manifest.json so it can relate back out to our assets for this. And it added that in the build and test sections of angular.json file. You'll also find that it now has the service worker for true as well as the ngsw config path specified in angular.json. The next file that was updated was app.module.ts. It added the service worker module registration for ngsw-worker.js. I did notice when it did this, it was expecting there not to be an environment variable, or it didn't look for it to update. So I ended up with a duplication here. You can just remove one of these if this happens for you, as they're both pointing to the correct location to look up the environment file. Something to notice with that is the environment has to be set to production in order for your service worker to be used. So when you're in development mode and you have a server just running locally, you're not going to run into the service worker issue and have to deal with caching and all of that fun stuff. So make sure your environment file is set there correctly. The next item up is index.html. It has included the link rel manifest with href manifest.json, as well as a meta tag for your theme color. You'll want to match up your theme colors to anything that might be in your header or whatever your default theme is. You may have noticed that because in index.html we have the manifest.json set statically, it will always load, so you can check that out when you're in the browser, whether you're serving a dev or in production. However, for a service worker, you're going to need to be able to set the ngbuild --prod so that it creates your service worker for you. We can check that out by just doing Firebase serve in our current project, or you can serve it up with any other tool that you're used to using. So once we do that, we can take a look, and as you see here, there is a service worker that is now working in the browser, and you'll see the manifest.json has all of our Angular icons listed. One of the tools that I enjoy using is app-manifest.firebaseapp.com. You can start to customize your manifest.json as well as icons that will be listed. Instead of the generic Angular, you'll really want to tie out an icon that matches your theme for your product or your app. And this will provide all of the necessary sizing for each one of those icons. What you'll need to do next is take the images that were downloaded and replace your current images with the ones that were generated. And that way you'll get your nice icons that you want for your app. You can also replace your manifest.json with the currently created one. Just be careful that everything lines back up so that your icons show up on the right path and that your manifest is correct and your theme colors and all of that. You can check all of that again in Chrome by just going to App and then Manifest. Here's an example where I did it wrong and went to check it in manifest.json. You'll get the icons as missing from there. What I found out was I needed to be in assets icons and then each icon, and I was one layer too high. So just go ahead and change that back and you should be all set. At this point, if you jump back over into the audits tab, you can run a Lighthouse audit just for the PWA side. And once that runs, you should get 100 score on your PWA. You can dig through that a little further to see what it's checking exactly. But at this time, you could actually do Firebase deploy and you have a PWA good to go in production. Now that we have a PWA app, we're really looking to get that discovered. And one way to do this is using Trusted Web Activity to get our app into the Google Play Store and available on the billion-plus Android devices. The next step that we're going to go through is to create a app for publishing out on play.google.com/apps/publish. If you haven't been out here or don't have a dev set up yet, it's $25, so I know that's a little bit of a limit for some of you. However, this is the only way to actually push apps out into the App Store. I'll put some links in the description for how you can do this a little more simply. So first things first, what we're going to do is create a new application. You'll notice we've called ours AJ's Books, and we can give it a description. There's a lot of asterisks in here that are required. I'm going to skip through some things, but really cover and focus on the important steps within here. The images required for your app are one of those areas that are going to become important. They have asterisks as well, and you need to be careful to make sure that you're adding all of the images that are required. You won't get a green check mark on the store listing unless all of them that you need to provide are listed. So the next step logically would be to go into app releases and drop an APK file in. However, because we started with our PWA, we don't quite have that yet. So what we're going to have to do is go into app signing. And we're going to grab the SHA-256 hash so that we can take that into our well-known TWA file within our app so that we can serve that on a web page. Now that we have our SHA-256, we're going to create a new folder called well-known. Make sure you put the dot in front of it, so it's .well-known. Within that folder, there will be a new file called assetlinks.json. I'll put the full setup for this in the description and also the lesson. However, what you're going to need mainly in here is the package name for your app, and this will become important when we're tying this back inside of our Angular application. And then that SHA-256 fingerprint that you copied will need to go under the array section for SHA-256. We will also need to take the angular.json file and start serving this file up. So if you just copy any of the files under assets in your build, then you can add source/.well-known and then assetlinks.json. If you're unclear if this actually is working, what you can do is serve this locally again and hit the endpoint for your local host and then /well-known/assetlinks.json, and you should see this file served up publicly. What you'll need for this next part is a GitHub repo that I've placed out there. This is based on the default one provided by Chrome, but I've also added the status bar coloring that'll allow you to change the color of your status bar to match the theme that is both in your manifest and your app. To get started using this, just clone the repo. It's on GitHub, ajohnp LLC, and then /com-ajohnp-app. Now, if you've never done any Android development, it may be easier to do some of these changes within VS Code. Eventually, you will have to jump in to create your APK file, or at least do it from the command line. But as you can see here, if you go into app source and then build.gradle, there's a few things that you can change. And just note that your application ID is the one that will have to match what was in your well-known host file. So here I've changed this to com.ajohnp, AJ's books, and then the host name will have to match. I was surprised. I thought I had read literature that you can't do subdomains, but this is working just fine. So the host name is ajsbooks.ajohnp.com, and the default URL is ajsbooks.ajohnp.com as well, with the HTTPS side of it on there. Now we're ready to get started on Android Studio. In order to do this, you need to open the GitHub repo repository on your local disk, so that we're in the correct project. Now if we take a look at our build.gradle file once again, you'll notice that all of the changes we made in VS Code are done here. If you wanted to skip to this step and update it from Android Studio directly, you can do that, and that's just fine. I tend to be more comfortable in VS Code, so I can update like my Git and things like that while I'm hanging out in there. The next step is we'll check out the Android manifest. You'll see some linkages here. I just wanted to show this really quickly because this is where I added the launcher activity. You'll see com.ajohnp launcher activity here. That's how we actually get the color. Just to skip forward through this, if you're not an Android developer, I'll show you where to update that color at directly, and you should be good to go. Now if we drop down from res values, you'll see styles.xml. This is the reference for all the styles in an Android project. You'll see IC launcher backgrounds in here. If we take a look at that, right there's your launcher background color that we'll need to update. The next step that we're going to take a look at is the icon for our app. If you go into res and then MIP map or my map, you'll find IC launcher. IC launcher is going to currently have my icon in it for AJ on Perfect Solutions. But we're going to change that out so you can use whatever icon you want. This is the powerful part of Android Studio because it's going to automate a lot of this process for us. To start adding the image, we'll just right click on res and then you can go down to image asset. This will open up a prompt to do the configuration for image asset. You'll notice here that there's several different icon shapes that you need to stick within. So if you pay close attention, there's a light circle on the middle of this that you'll have to stay within for your boundary, and that will allow the correct image to fit within all of the different icon shapes that are allowed. Now if you click the path folder, you'll be able to open up different images. If you navigate back to the folder that had our PWA in it, you can actually grab our image assets from there that we worked so hard to add to our manifest. And you can use that as one of your defaults. I would recommend starting off with the 512 as it has a pretty decent resolution that it will start from. You might want to go higher than this, and there's a whole tutorial how to make better icons. But once you have that loaded, you want to be careful. Once again, you'll see that slight circle in there, so you'll need to kind of move the resize back and forth until you're very happy with where it ends up. The next piece of advice I would have is updating the color for your background so that it matches the same as your icon, so you're not going to get any leakage back through there. That way it's going to look like your icon continues on continuously forever. Now I know this seems like it's taking a long time, but if you ever write an Android app from scratch, this would take a lot longer. So this is great. We're already at the part where we're going to generate a signed bundle in APK. When you're doing this, the first prompt will ask you Android app bundle or APK. So far what I've noticed is APK is the only supported way to do this. One of the keys here is that on the key store path, you'll have to create a new key store. Don't be intimidated by this. You can store it off, but make sure that you create a secret for both the key store and the key. You want to save those off somewhere private and safe. Don't give those out. Now, something to pay close note to, you'll want to select release, but you'll also want to click V1 jar as well as V2. I missed that the first time and I had to do it all over again. Now, while that's running, it shouldn't take too long, but we could do something else. So let's go to the play.google.com apps publish once again and open up your app, and you'll see down after clicking app releases, you'll see in here that we want to add something to our internal test track. So you click manage, and then we're going to create a release. By the time you get to this step, we should be about ready to have that APK file done, and we can drop it into the app bundle APK to add. Now, if you open up Android Studio, down in the bottom right hand corner, there's going to be a generated signed, and you can locate that file. We're going to then have that file ready to drop onto our Android app bundle APK. And just like that, it should load up and process, and we'll be good to go. From here, you can see that the APK has version 4. You can update that version to whatever you'd like. The release name can also be whatever you'd like. Just update the language file here for what's new in this release. You can look up any of the language types that are out there. I'm going to use English because I speak English, and my users mainly do too. So if you click save, you should then see a check mark over on the far left. Now you can actually skip this next part. It's to add emails to a testing group if you aren't ready to go live with your PWA, which is hard to believe because your PWA is probably live on the internet already. But if you want testers to hit that, you need to create a list and set those up. This is not required, and you might get a warning later on if you don't do this, but it's completely up to you. As mentioned before, we need green check marks all the way down, and you'll notice right now our store listing does not have one. So if we click back on there again, something that I mentioned previously is that we need to load up all of the correct graphics files or we won't see that. So as I'm scanning through here, I'm checking all of my little blue asterisks, which, by the way, Google, if you're watching this, they're really hard to see. But if you scroll up to the image section, you'll see here that we need to add 2 more image types for that check mark to be listed. Now, Google has determined that you need very specific types on these, so pay attention closely to the width and height that you need for each of the images. And then once that's set, you should be able to save and get the green check mark beside the store listing. Next up, we need to get a check mark beside the content rating. So once you click on that, you can hit continue. You'll have to fill out an email address that you can have access to. So for example, I use support@ajonp.com, and then you can scroll through this and you'll have to actually certify this app. If it doesn't contain anything and it's just very informational, it should just get an everyone rating. Now, as your app is a PWA, typically your pricing and distribution, you're not going to have people pay for, but you might. I mean, if Twitter decided to take their PWA into the App Store and then started charging $1 for it, that's totally something you can do. Typically on the PWA side, you're going to get this from ad revenue or in-app type of purchases. So you can fill out whatever questions that fit for your needs, and then you should be all set and get that last check mark that we're looking for. Now comes my favorite part in this entire journey. You can click the create release under production for app releases. Because we already have one, you can click add from library. You'll load up our version 4 and hit add, and then you have a production release. All you have to do is update what's in the release. Again, English, Spanish, whatever language you need to add here. You click save. Now that our app is ready, we can click Start Rollout to Production. Once you confirm this, Google will actually take a look at this app and review it. It could take some time to get to the production state where it's actually in the Play Store. You'll have to check back. I've got anywhere from like an hour on this to 24 hours. I'm not sure what their SLA time is for the actual reviews. I'm sure it depends a lot on your rating as well. If you have something explicit or for children, they're probably going to take a lot more time to take a look. Now, once it's approved, you should see it in the Play Store just like so. You can install it and it will appear on your desktop just like a normal app would. On the left here, you'll notice that the app has got the dark background, and on the right, the PWA has the white. If you happen to get a toolbar at the top, you're probably not on the latest version of Chrome. I believe you need to be on version 72 in order for that to go away. So I've spent a lot more time on PWAs, but if you notice here, I've really slowed it down, and you can watch the splash screen come up with the nice logo and Ajon P on the bottom. When I open up the Android side of this, it doesn't have that, and it happens to have like a white bar on the bottom for my back buttons. So there's a few things here that still could be tweaked. More than happy for a pull request if anyone's good with Android apps and want to fix that. Thanks again for watching this lesson on PWA to TWA using the Chrome browser and Android. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe today so you can get the latest tips and tricks from AJ on Perfect Solutions. And we'll see you next week with another lesson and solution.